Welcome to Language Links, everyone. We're talking today about writing for young children or older children who haven't yet had the experience writing and who haven't developed more conventional writing skills. Before we get started, I want to bring to your attention the annual CARD conference that's coming up in January, and you can go to this website. You can take a picture of this screen if you would like. This year, every year is a wonderful conference. This year it's virtual, so you can go to the conference from your home. So I think that's a great opportunity. I also want to bring to your attention that October is AAC Awareness Month. And if you have a child who uses AAC or could be a potential AAC user, then you may want to Google October AAC Awareness Month, and you'll see all of the different specials that the AAC software and app companies are giving this whole month of October. You can get some pretty good deals, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is our link tree. CARD has developed what we call a link tree over the last, since March, 7 months. 6 months, and the link tree is what you see on the left side of your screen, and you can find this link tree in 2 different places on our website. Our website is this website up at the top, and you can find the link tree by clicking on this picture. When it's on the screen, it scrolls. So you can find it by touching those dots on the bottom, clicking on those dots, and you'll find that picture that you can click on, and it will take you to our link tree. Or where I have this second arrow all the way to the right, that is always in the bar on the right-hand side of our website. And if you click on that, it will take you to our link tree, and you can see all the different tools that we have collected there. Events, training, some really great resources for you. And this is our my slide for you to be able to contact not only myself, you see my phone number and my email address, but also our CARD offices. Feel free to send families there, but also if you are not registered with CARD and you want to be, you can take a photo of this QR code, and it will take you right to our site where you can pre-register and then get a phone call from someone at our office. So let's get to talking about writing. Why are we talking about writing in Language Links? Well, in Language Links, we talk about language development, communication development, and writing skills require a certain amount of language and vocabulary. So it's important to discuss this in Language Links. The other thing is writing is a way to communicate. Writing is a mode of communication. And so it is very fitting that we're talking about writing in Language Links. So there's a saying, there's an elephant in the room. And we say this when there's something that really needs to be discussed, but kind of no one says anything about it, or people don't know what to say about it. So throughout our hour together, I'm going to talk about a few of those elephants in the room that we have to address, okay? So the first one is, what prerequisite skills are necessary before learning to write? And if you want to turn, unmute yourself and yell it out, please do. I'll give you anyone a second to answer, but what is required for our kids to be able to do before they're ready to become writers?
Can I answer one?
Please.
I was going to say like pencil holding and grip strength. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, if you're looking at more.
Okay, that comes after this.
Okay, yes.
But it is something that we're going to talk about today. Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Me.
Yes, Laura.
I would say sit still.
To sit still. Okay. Because we want to get their focus and for them to attend. Okay. All right. Well, both of you are on the right track, but this is what it is. There are no prerequisites required to teach our kids to become writers. What you guys suggested does come once we are giving them the opportunities, which we'll talk about today, but they don't need to do anything, all right? And you'll see why as we keep going. The other elephant in the room that we have to talk about is this. Handwriting, tracing, and copying is not what we are talking about today. We are not discussing handwriting or copying words or sentences or tracing our name. That's handwriting, and that's a totally different set of skills. Today, we're talking about writing, all right? Any questions about that? So writing, the actual skill of writing, has some subskills. One of those subskills is handwriting, the actual physical act of writing. Writing also involves spelling. It involves the conventions of writing, like grammar, punctuation, capitalization. Writing involves the use of language, and all of this is very important for the development of writing. But when we're talking about our little guys or our older guys who just haven't had the experience and been able to become actual conventional writers, we are not focusing yet on these things. We don't focus on these things with typical children. So we're not going to do that with our children who have language challenges, fine motor challenges, etc. What is writing? What are we talking about today? Writing is the skill of using letters to put those letters together to create words, and you put those words together and you create sentences, and those sentences come together to create a whole paragraph that represents ideas and thoughts. Writing also helps us become better readers, writers, and thinkers. The more we write, the better writers we become. That has an impact on reading, and reading has an impact on writing, and writing also helps us become better thinkers. And I'm gonna show you a model of emergent literacy soon, and you'll understand that a little more. Why do we write? Why is writing so important in our lives? We just do it. We kind of, take it for granted. But these are all reasons why we write. We write to share our thoughts and opinions. We write to describe something that we want someone else to understand, to tell a story, to ask a question, answer a question, to argue, to demonstrate what we know. We do all of this every day, right? These are things that we write every day. Why do we want to teach our kids with autism or developmental delays or any other challenge to become writers? Well, we want them to develop independence. Writing is very important to become independent. Writing is also important for the development of social networks. We text, we use Facebook, other social media platforms that require writing. And those social networks are very important. And we have seen in this pandemic time how important being able to write on our devices, our phones, our computers, iPads, to other people to keep those connections going. We want to teach our kids how to write so that they can extend their learning, so that they can become college students, post-college students. We want them to be able to access employment. Literacy skills are very, very important to be able to establish employment and then to establish careers. Empowerment can be achieved if our students, if our children are able to be independent and have social networks and learn and establish employment and careers. Writing is also really important for those of us who have children who use AAC, because AAC devices are wonderful. They give our children a tool to be able to communicate to us, but our devices don't have every single word in a language available. So we want to teach them to be able to type or write what they want to say if they can't verbalize it and they can't find it in their speech generating device. Writing is also a human right. And for that reason alone, our children need to be taught how to become writers. What does a beginning writer look like? What are they doing? What's emergent writing? Well, so I love this little picture of this baby, this toddler who's writing. He is writing. That is called writing at that age. This is what all children do. And it is the platform upon which all other writing skills develop. So beginning writing, emergent writing, pre-emergent writing, that it comes before beginning writing, looks like learning how to hold a piece of chalk or a pencil. And they're learning how to use the vocabulary, language that they have in order to translate that into print to give a message, to make meaning. Emergent writers and pre-emergent writers are learning that their ideas are powerful and they're worthy of sharing with other people. Beginning writing also is playful. Think about young children, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. They play with writing tools. And this is what we want even our 5-year-old, 6-year-old, even older children who are just beginning this skill to do. Our pre-emergent writers and emergent writers are also learning how to read. They're learning how to use books, what to do with books. They're learning that letters have sounds and those sounds make up words and those words make up the sentences to develop those thoughts. They're also learning that each word, that we read each group of letters, one-to-one correspondence, that we read each word in that sentence to come together to make meaning. Our children at this point are also learning to draw, to express themselves, and we call that writing at that age. And we're also giving them opportunities to draw about their writing. And for those of you who have children who have gone to typical preschools, you'll get that picture, that the drawing that comes home from school, and maybe on a sentence strip or at the bottom of the paper, the teacher wrote the sentence that your child dictated to them, and then the child draws a drawing that matches what they dictated. And this is called writing. This is what they do at this age to build those skills. And then we also ask them, read us what you wrote or drew. This is how those those skills develop. But our children have some challenges in developing writing skills, and it's important to understand what these roadblocks are. Historically, the research was showing us that for many children with special needs, they were not engaging in as many writing or literacy experiences as their typically developing peers. That in itself is a roadblock to developing writing skills if you're not given the same opportunities. More recent research is showing, though, that very often our children with special needs are exposed to literacy learning opportunities, but the expectations that we have of them are not as high as those that we have of their typically developing peers. That's a problem. We need to have high expectations, or else our children are not going to reach the level that we need them to be at. Here are some more challenges that are roadblocks for our kids. Fine motor challenges, that fatigue that they get from handwriting. Very often they don't understand the function of writing. If they don't understand the function, then why partake in it? And then the skills are not developing. We also often insist on focusing on those subskills before those pre-emergent and emergent skills begin to develop. So we focus on the handwriting or the spelling, and that's a roadblock. And we also, as adults, too often, we think that our children are just not ready to write. And that's the biggest roadblock, because our kids from a very young age, all of them, whether they have a special need or not, they need to be exposed to reading and writing opportunities. I'm not going through these stages of writing development, but if you are interested in taking a photo of this just so you have it for your own record, these are the stages of writing development. There are many models out there, but this is one of them. But what I will say about the stages of writing development is that for many of our students who learn a little bit differently, they may not follow that sequential, the stages of writing. They may go out of order. They may skip a stage, and that's okay. For them, they may do it differently, and it's okay. So this is the emergent view of literacy. And what this model tells us is that all of these skills that you see in front of you develop simultaneously. Decades ago, we thought that first babies learned to become listeners, and then they learned to talk. Once they learned to talk, then they were ready to learn to become readers. Once a child becomes a reader, then they're ready to become a writer. That's not correct. We know that all of those skill areas develop at the same time and need each other to develop. So children need to be listening, talking, even if it's through a speech generating device or pointing to pictures, some form of AAC. They need to be reading and writing all together. All right. If we wait for children to talk in order to then teach them to read and write, we might be waiting a very, very long time. That's not fair to the child. And that is a total waste of time, which is disrespectful to the child. So we need to think about exposing our kids to all of these at the same time, starting at a very young age. And it's never too late to do that. So the bottom line is we learn to listen and use language by, say it in your head, listening and using language. And we learn to read by, say it in your head, reading. And we learn to write by writing. This is how we learn. So where do we start? Our children need multiple opportunities to write all day, every day, okay? So this is an example of a schedule from a typical preschool classroom. I see some of you getting very close to the screen because the writing is very small. And quite honestly, I can barely see it because my reading glasses need to get stronger. But this is a 3 hours? It is a 3 hour, no, it's a 6 hour schedule. See, now I can see the 6. And it describes for preschool classrooms the various activities that might take place. And if you look closely, you will see all day long, there are reading activities going on, listening activities going on, activities where children are writing throughout the day, not just in a 10-minute period where it's journal time. It's throughout the day. And lots of speaking, communicating. So all day long, these typical children are exposed for 6 hours to all of these amazing literacy activities, okay? And so this is an example, that's actually my youngest son when he was 4 in his preschool classroom. And his teachers were, you know, obviously I'm going to show you pictures. Their classroom was amazing with literacy activities all over the place. In this school, you could see this going on in any classroom, whether the kids were 2, 3, or 4. And you will see from the photos that I'm going to show you, these are things that the kids have access to, even if they are not readers, okay? So in this classroom, there was a word wall. There were letters and numbers for the kids to manipulate on the wall. There on the left-hand side, the children dictated sentences and then they copied or tried to write their own, or the teacher supported them in writing their own. On the right-hand side, you can see a picture of a morning message. And when these 4-year-olds came into the classroom, they had a message every morning. Now, do you think that 4-year-olds were able to read this message? No, they couldn't, but that didn't matter. They still were exposed to the fact that the teachers wrote them a meaningful message and that they could read it, and the teacher would read it to them. And they learned to recognize certain words just by the shape of the words, even if they didn't know the sound or even if they couldn't recognize the sight word. They were still exposed. And you can see on the bottom lots of different books. There's a poem there. This is their writing center. What do 4-year-olds do at a writing center if they can't even write a word? Nor should they, right? We shouldn't expect 4-year-olds to write a word. These are all the different things that were in their writing center. Things to trace, crayons, markers, pens, chalk. Did I say crayons? There was a little mailbox in the writing center so the kids could write a little letter and put it in the mailbox. Scissors, things to, like those plastic things that you trace letters in. There was a box of cards and the kids could pull a card and write the shape or the word. It's endless, the things that you could put in a writing center. They had a hundreds board. They had the letters displayed in many different areas. They had in this jar, the kids would write, I don't know, an answer to something, and then they would pull out one of the answers. They did handwriting without tears, so they were practicing some handwriting. They had color words displayed. So as you can see, even though the kids aren't writers, they had all the tools available to them to become writers. And this is absolutely crucial for our kids. Without those opportunities, they will not develop the skills. I want to read you this quote by Marie Clay, who was a researcher, and she studied the development of literacy skills in children. And she wrote in a book of hers called How Very Young Children Explore Writing, "Most of us have forgotten how puzzled we were by language in print when we first tried to write. We got better and better, faster and faster, until we have no memories left of what those first steps were like. Most adults think that looking at print is just something our eyes do automatically and something we never had to think about. But we had to learn to do many things. And so we really take for granted what it takes to develop writing skills. And it starts at a very young age and slowly, slowly builds as our children develop. The journey that our children with special needs need to take, to get to be writers is the same journey as typical children, but it might take them longer, and we have to be patient as they develop those skills. They have to work really hard to overcome many different challenges that we've discussed. And so we have to be patient as they develop language and they develop their literacy skills. So let's talk about strategies for the rest of the time that we are together. The first thing I want to talk about that you can do is remember that literacy skills, reading and writing, develop in a social context. And so the social engagement with your child as you read with them, as you write with them, is very, very important to the development of those skills that you're trying to get them to develop. So having fun, sharing that moment, making it fun for them and meaningful, using their interest areas, having them really engage in the moment with you is going to build that foundation. So that's the first strategy. The second thing we need to talk about is the fact that every child needs to have a pencil. And we're going to talk about what that pencil is. There's this concept of an alternative pencil. That's anything other than a pencil that we might use to write. And for some of our kids, even if they're older and they're developing writing skills, we really want to think about alternative pencils as being a way for them to be able to express their thoughts without the fatigue or of the fine motor skill of handwriting. And some of our children have, quite challenged motor skills, and so we will want to look at assistive technology to become an alternative pencil for them. But when they're young and they're beginning to develop those fine motor skills, we also need to supplement with these alternative pencils. I learned this years ago when I was teaching in the classroom. I had I don't know, I think the little boy was maybe in third or fourth grade, and we were working on single digit addition for months and months and months and months and months, and we couldn't get past the single digit addition. And I couldn't figure out why, because all the skill areas were developing, but just single digit addition, every answer was incorrect, and we just couldn't move on. And one day I wrote numbers on those little round stickers that, you would use at a garage sale or something to write a price on. And I made one page of zeros, one page of ones, one page of twos, etc. And I told him to write the answer using the stickers. Instead of him having to actually handwrite, he could take a sticker and stick the answer on. Lo and behold, he knew every single answer. And it was the handwriting that was stopping him from being able to get the answer out correctly. And I kid you not, within a couple of weeks, we were doing double-digit addition. So giving our children an alternative pencil, broadening that world for them, can give them the tools that they need to show us that they have the skill. And they can demonstrate it in a different way. And they can practice it using these tools in a way that works for them, that makes them successful. So provide many different writing tools as they are experimenting with these alternative pencils, and have these tools available for them. They should be at their level where they can reach them, maybe like in a play area. For a lot of you, you're doing school at home right now. So have these tools available for them where they have access. Obviously, you don't want to give them like a permanent marker near your living room, but, the point is, make these things available to them. Assistive technology is the next step and a little more advanced. And this might include, different software, different accessibility features that you can use on your computer, word prediction software. These are things to consider as your child is developing writing skills to help them become more successful. There are so many different accessibility features that we have even on our iPhones, on our tablets, on our computers. There's so many different tools out there to support our kids so that they don't need to handwrite. And dictation is an alternative pencil, right? So when we talk about a different way to write, it could also be them telling you what they want to say and you writing it down. I think this is the third elephant in the room that we need to address. Dictation is okay, because how many doctors do you see dictating into a handheld recorder, and that's how they're writing? I mean, we have Siri on every phone. We have on our computers, we're able to talk to our computers and it will type out a whole document. This is a lifesaver for so many people. And dictation is similar to listening to an audiobook when we have dyslexia. It's okay. We have to allow our children to have a different tool to write, to express their thoughts and ideas and what's in their head. We want our children to handwrite when the goal of the task is to show that you know the formation of letters. But if we want our children to express the ideas in their heads, dictation is totally fine. All right, so we got that out of the way. And how do you choose the right alternative pencil? Where do you start? Well, the use of that alternative pencil needs to be easy and offer the greatest potential possible. And you might need to go through a few alternative pencils to find the right one. Whatever the alternative pencil is, you also want to make sure that the child has access to the entire alphabet. So if they are learning to type on a keyboard, they need to have all those letters available to them. We never want to focus on 3 letters and put tape on the rest of them so that they can only practice typing those 3 letters. We need to give them all the letters because this is how we learn how to write. Do this as soon as possible. Children do not need to know their letters or their letter sounds in order to begin using any pencil. And they don't need to know how to use that pencil. Just give them the pencil and they will figure it out. And you need to model the use of their pencil so that they can learn and see the meaning in that pencil. The next strategy is excitement. You need to have a party when your child begins to write. Really celebrate every line that your child creates on a piece of paper, or with chalk on the pavement outside your house, or with a paintbrush and water on an outdoor wall of your house. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I used to give my kids a can of water and a big paintbrush, and we would paint the walls outside. You know, it turns a different color until it dries. You know, say, let's write a story on the wall with water. Be excited. We want to write without standards. This goes back to, don't worry about those subskills. You need to give meaningful feedback only about what they're writing in terms of the ideas. And your feedback should help them generate new ideas or more ideas about what they're writing. And I'm going to give you some examples of that in a second. Whatever feedback you give them should not be about standards and should help them understand that their message that they wrote is very meaningful. So here are some ideas that you can say to a child who can speak. Okay, you don't want to say, if they write something, you don't want to say, good writing, good job, because that's very non-specific. They won't know what they did that was so great. And you want to help them understand what they did so well so that they repeat it. You don't want to say you wrote a lot, because a lot isn't necessarily good, right? It could be 2 words or even a scratch on a page. And for them, that could be a huge accomplishment. You don't want to say stuff like, that's not how you spell such and such. Let me show you how. Or you left a period out. Or remember your capitals. Or you're not supposed to, because that is going to shut down the writing experience. Instead, we want to say things like, can you read what you wrote to me? Or, I like that you wrote about such and such. What else could you add about such and such? Write more about Disney. Read it to so-and-so. He likes to read about Disney also. You know a lot about tigers. Those are great descriptions. Tigers are strong and loud. What a great writer you are. Tell us more. Those are encouraging. Those are meaningful things to say. Now, we expect the child to speak back to us when we say those things. These are things we can say to a child who has difficulty verbalizing or uses AAC. So again, we want to avoid the things like, good writing, you wrote a lot. Looks like you were trying to write tiger. Let me show you how to spell it. Don't do that. You want to say things like, I see you chose a picture of tigers to write about. I could use the letter P, and you would point to, you know, maybe if they're using chalk or a keyboard, you can point to the letter P and you can say, I can point to P and write the word pet. Would you pet a tiger? Or you chose 3 tiger pictures today. I can't wait to see what you write next. Tell us more about the tiger and her baby. So even choosing 3 tiger pictures, not words, we call it writing in a pre-emergent writer, because it shows them that those pictures are symbols of their ideas. We want to allow for invented spelling. That's when we allow children to spell what they hear. And it's not always accurate. As they have experience with it, it gets closer and closer to what it needs to be. But it's not accurate, and it's okay, because they're hearing sounds and they're recording those sounds. This is an example of what it might look like. Eons ago, my neighbor's daughter put this in my mailbox, and she wrote, "Dear neighbor." Happy early Thanksgiving. And when I got it, I immediately, this is like 10 years ago, I called her mom right away and I said, please, can I use this in my training? It's a perfect example of invented spelling. Okay. Her mom did not say, oh no, you need to spell neighbor and early properly before you put it in the neighbor's mailbox. No one said that to her. She was praised for her message. But with kids with autism, why do we correct them when they're in these emergent and beginning writing stages? We need to allow them to do this. This is another example. This is a note that my middle son wrote to me when he was little. He wrote, "Dear Mom, you are so mean for taking my peace sign." So you can see the letters there. He was doing, we had like a peace sign, the peace symbol made out of felt, and I don't know, he was like hitting his brother with it or something, and I took it away, and so he wrote me an angry note. I didn't go to him and say, well, your spelling is incorrect. He gave me a message and I addressed the message. And this is the foundation upon which further writing skills will develop. We also need to give our children a chance to write for many, many reasons. And in school, they're doing this throughout the day. At home, it's a little bit different. You need to seize those moments. Write birthday cards, write out the week's menu, send emails together, send texts together, write reminder notes, have a writing journal, write lists, show them what you're writing. It's very important to model that. Our emergent writers should have opportunities to write about things that are interesting to them, meaningful to them, for meaningful purposes. We never, ever want to give young children or developing writers an assignment to write that doesn't have a purpose, that's meaningless to them. It has to have a purpose. And very often it helps when we give them their choice of a topic. These are some ideas, some ways of giving them a choice. So you might give them like a choice board, and this is a visual choice board where I'm giving 4 different things. You can write about your pet, your trip to Disney, our pool, or the volcano experiment we did last week. Which one do you want to write about? I'm going to write about our pet. Which one will you write about? You can also use photos as choices to give them what do you want to write about, and show them a couple of photos, objects, a conversation book, which I've done language links on creating a conversation book in the past. And that's just creating a compilation of memories that the child can write about. You can write a list and let them choose something to write about from the list. And graphic organizers. You can also create a graphic organizer with different choices of what they can write about. And I'm going to show you examples of graphic organizers very soon. Predictable chart writing is something that teachers do at school, usually in preschool and kindergarten. And it's a really nice strategy, because for our kids who are developing language, part of the sentence is always the same. So the sentence, you know, everybody in the classroom would write, I see blank, I see blank. And in that blank, each child has a turn to dictate what they want the sentence to say. You can do this at home, and it might look something like this. So you would say, okay, we're going to write about your birthday party. And the whole family is going to have a chance to write about what they heard at your birthday party. And so you say, I heard Matt, what did you hear? And Matt dictates that he heard singing. So you write in the word for him, and then you write who wrote that sentence. And you say, I love the sentence you wrote. It tells me so much about your party. And then mommy has a chance, daddy has a chance, even grandma, pops has a chance. So you can do your own predictable chart at home if it works for you, depending on the context. But this is a really great strategy. So you come up with that phrase, leave a blank, and everybody dictates the same, you know, for that phrase, okay? If you go to this website, if you want to take a photo of this, this is from the most amazing website, Dr. Zangari's practicalaac.org. If you have an AAC user, this is a really great blog that Dr. Zangari wrote about using AAC for predictable chart writing. So you can take a look at that. It's a really great resource. The 8th strategy that we'll discuss is you have to write in front of your child for meaningful purposes. Write shopping lists. Say, oh, I forgot to add this. Let's add this to our shopping list, and write it in front of your child. Ask them to help. Ask them to cross things off as you shop. It shows the function of that list. You also want to, this goes along with being excited, display your child's writing, whether it's one line on the page, a whole sentence, or a drawing. A drawing is writing. It tells a message. Talk aloud as you write. This is really important because our children very often don't realize that they have a voice inside their heads that can help guide them as they write. So an example would be, you know, you're writing something and something doesn't make sense. And so you talk out loud. We all do this, you and I, we do this in our heads, but we don't usually do it out loud. And this way our child can hear what they should be doing in their heads. So you can say something like, that doesn't make sense. I need to add a word in there. And you reread it and write in the word. Or you can say something like, I want to remember what dad should buy at the store. What should I do? I know. I'm gonna write a list. Or I will send Pop a birthday card. It's his birthday tomorrow. And I'm gonna start my note. How should I start it? I know, dear Pop. Okay, so we're modeling what we are thinking inside our heads. You also, as your child is learning writing skills, is you want to use both uppercase and lowercase letters. This goes for teaching them when they write their names. Right off the bat, they should be learning the first letter is capitalized, the rest of the letters are not. Don't teach them to write their name in capital letters, thinking then you'll transition to lowercase. Because why are we going to make them do it all over again in lowercase? Do it right the first time. And the same thing goes for all words. They need to be exposed to both uppercase and lowercase at the same time. We want to provide them with visual supports as they're developing these skills. And for this, you might use this in like the area where you're completing schoolwork maybe. This kind of stuff is available in their classrooms. If it's not, it should be. So we'll see word walls where we'll post sight words, or we'll put on a word wall words that relate to a specific story that they can use, so that they can look at the word wall and be able to use some of those words in their writing. This is how kids learn how to write. We might have each child have a notebook, and that's their personal dictionary, and we can list words in there that they can look up and use. We can use pictures, symbols added to text to help them make meaning of the words. And we also use graphic organizers to help our kids generate ideas and vocabulary. These are examples of graphic organizers. And if you Google graphic organizers, you'll come up with a ton of different ideas. all these different ideas. So if, for example, we're going to write about our Disney trip, this, the one right here in the top right corner, I would write Disney. And then in all the circles around, we would generate the different words that the child needs to write about Disney so that they can easily access those ideas when they're writing. This is a visual support to help them generate their thoughts and their language. Here's some more. Sorry. I don't know if the screen just changed, but okay. This is an example of a, this dates back 14 years, but this is a graphic organizer that a little boy that I was working with wrote, and his name was Matthew, and he wrote all the different things that he wanted to say about himself that he was writing about. And so first he wrote, we made the graphic organizer, and this organized his ideas and his language. Then he wrote his piece, and you can tell, you know, that there are no spaces in between words. Not everything is correct, but if he had not had that graphic organizer, he would not have been able to organize his ideas the way he did. And I love at the end, he wrote, P.S. I want to learn. I thought that was so cool. This is another example of a graphic organizer being used in an assignment that involved writing about leaves. The next strategy is using PowerPoint. And for those of you who know me, you know I am in love with PowerPoint. And I think that we can use PowerPoint to do so many things, to engage with our children, to teach them how to read, but also to teach them how to write. They can write their own things using PowerPoint. It's great. And here are a couple of examples. So this is a wordless book that a child could write. And in this case, the book is about food, and we say, you wrote a wordless book. I love it. And on each page is the child's picture, because very often children love to see themselves in the book. And these are all the foods that the child likes. Oh, I'm sorry. And as you read what they wrote, you talk about it, you engage. This is a really good literacy activity, very meaningful. And they can also use words. So I quickly put this together. It literally took me 5 minutes because I quickly got the photos that I had of our puppy, who's now 2, but this is when we first got her. I put it onto my computer, I stuck it into PowerPoint, and quickly put this together. So this is our new puppy. And what you can do with PowerPoint is make the transition of things onto the page so that it pulls their attention into the activity. So they're writing, but you're also adding in features that pull their attention in and get them excited. This is Talia. Talia is, and every single page starts with Talia is. That's that predictable part. And then your child can fill in soft. Isn't she cute? Talia is brown. Talia is playful. Talia is loving. And then look what you can do. If I click on it, I added my own audio. You hear that? Your child can write their own book and add in sound effects. How cool is that? I love it. I mean, then your child's going to want to read it to every family member, and then they're reading and writing. I'm getting a little too excited, sorry. I'm going to show you some writing samples, some ideas to help you, see how you can pull your child into these writing activities. This was many years ago, I don't know, 15 years ago, with a little guy who was about 10. He was an emergent writer, did not like to write because I think people in his past had focused so much on that form and those subskills. So when I said, we're gonna write, the pencil was thrown, but this is how I got him to write. I made a photocopy, a color copy of Thomas, because he loved Thomas and he loved talking about Thomas. And I didn't care and make any comments about the spelling. And I allowed him to type it. And then we printed it and glued it on. Worked great. This is an example. He also loved, I'm totally blanking on, it's DW, and I forget this series.
Arthur.
Arthur, thank you. It's Arthur. And so I made a copy of a page from one of his favorite Arthur books, and he dictated to me. And when we were done, I said to him, you wrote such a great description of the picture. Thank you for sharing that with me. And that's it. He wrote it, he dictated it. He was way more willing to participate in writing because I allowed him to dictate. It wasn't about handwriting, it was about generating ideas. This is what we need to be doing. This little guy, also, writing was very aversive. This was over 20 years ago in my classroom. And he would dictate to me what he wanted to say, and I would write it for him. And he would copy it and then draw. Of course, we built on the skills from there, but this was a great starting point to help him get over the aversion of writing. And for this little girl, the only things that she was willing to write about were like pretty things. Like she loved to take pictures out of magazines of gorgeous women wearing heavy jewelry and makeup and, you know, princess dresses. And so she would cut out a picture every day, and that's what she would write about during journal time. It has to be meaningful. Every child did something different in my class. Not, you know, I didn't say everybody find a picture to write about. Everybody did it differently. Our children need a few things in order to develop these skills. Our children need continued and ongoing support from teachers. They need time. They need more time than typical children, and we need to be patient. The professionals teaching our children need ongoing and effective training. We need to get rid of all that other stuff, those subskills that we talked about. And we need to get over not wanting to use assistive technology. It's not a crutch. We all use this technology more and more every day. Let's allow our kids to use it so that they can develop skills. Our students need access to the whole alphabet. They need many, many opportunities that we discussed today. They need the freedom to experiment with many different tools and experiences. We need to attribute meaning to their writing. We may not always understand what they mean, but we need to take the best guess we can so that they understand that we appreciate whatever message they're trying to give us. We need to have high expectations. We need to monitor their progress. That's very important because we need to know when they're ready to go on to the next step. We need to know when something's not working so that we can tweak whatever strategy we're using. So always monitor their progress. Our children need to learn these skills in meaningful contexts. If it's not meaningful, it will not be learned. And it's disrespectful to them if it's not meaningful. And we need to give our kids a way to communicate what they want to write. Because without a way to communicate, they're not going to be able to dictate. They're not going to be able to use AAC or point to a picture or a speech generating device to communicate what they want to write about. We have to give them a way to communicate. We have to build their language. And what comes after this pre-emergent and emergent stage? Then we want to start thinking about systematic instruction, where we do start teaching those subskills. And we will use more and more assistive technology as needed. And that's when we start looking at that more conventional writing, the conventional literacy skills that come next. These are some amazing resources. If you want to take a picture of this, I encourage you to take a look at these wonderful resources. Some of them are books, practicalac.org. If you have not been to this website, it is my go-to website for everything. I love it. Dr. Zangari has shared so many amazing professionals, strategies, concepts. It's all there. And another one of my favorites is the Dynamic Learning Map professional development website. And this has some amazing, short modules that can teach you how to do everything that we discussed today and more in terms of literacy skills and communication skills for kids with any challenges. So I encourage you to take a look at that.